Skittle-bop-ba-doo-dop. Yeah. Last week on this show, I was a little harsh. I was a little dismissive of a game that's reviewed very well, and that hasn't sat well with me. For all of 2021, nobody's passed that 90 plus threshold. 89 for Bustafellows is as good as it gets. When the truth is that I'll miss you. The truth is that I didn't know what Bustafellows was. I was making a cheap joke that presumed that you also didn't know what Bustafellows was, and that you also presumed it's not of an 89 caliber. Because it's a visual novel, clearly. It's just one of those types of games. I'm not going to play it. I'm just going to assume like it is. But it's like, is Bustafellows a very good visual novel? Is it like Microsoft Flight Simulator? That is probably the best possible version of what that game is. Do I ever want to play it? No. You're just flying planes, man. There's no guns. But I can recognize that's probably a good video game. I can believe the reviews for that game. With Bustafellows, we're really all just giving those reviewers the benefit of the doubt. We're giving the game the benefit of the doubt. Sure, you're probably, Bustafellows, you're probably great. But this week, I saw the opportunity to know for sure, to not have to give it the benefit of the doubt. What if I actually just played this game? You know, because the greatest shield, the impenetrable wall of video game discussion has always been, well, have you played it? And I could say, Cyberpunk, I'm not. No, thank you. You. Have you played it, though? No! Then your opinion is invalid. Well, like, it's not, but that'll shut down any conversation. So I decided to play Bustafellows. I decided to show you. Not show you. Show you. The person who likes Bustafellows, you're gone. The person who is also unfamiliar with Bustafellows, I want to show you that it is okay, potentially, to roll your eyes at a thing you'll never try out. Hopefully, will my opinions be validated? Find out today on Delayed Input. So before I started playing Bustafellows, I wrote down two preconceptions I had of the game. One, this seems horny. So the Nintendo eShop defines this game as steamy noir otome. And to be honest with you, I didn't know what otome was. And I didn't look it up until I was writing this episode. Otome is a story-based video game that is targeted towards women. Generally, one of the goals, besides the main plot goal, is to develop a romantic relationship between the female player character and one of several male characters. And so looking that up now, after my playthrough, I see I see where that preconception came from. Think of the word Bustafellows. It's not overtly sexual. You could say the word Bustafellows at a park. No one's going to arrest you for it. But it is undeniably horny. Bustafellows. And then the second thing I wrote down is this seems boring. And I mean, that's a feeling I have a lot looking at most visual novels. I feel like the standout visual novels all have an apparent hook straight from the start. Like, these high school kids are trying to figure out who's murdering them. These high school kids are going to delete your save file. Something, you know? I didn't sniff that from Bustafellows on my first glance. It's kind of just like, here's the fellows, trust us. You're gonna love these steamy noir boys. The rest will all play itself out. So I figured I'd give the game a fair shake. Now, a fair shake, how many hours is a fair shake? Well, you gotta go to How Long to Beat to figure that out. And look at this, 13 hours at least? By the way, why does the main character look like a little girl here? That's a 21-year-old woman. Look, I like to make videos for you, but not at the expense of 13 hours of Bustafellows. I figured, okay, I'll just figure it out. I'll play until I get bored, or I'll play it until I love it. I'll just play it until a certain point. I'll figure out what a fair shake is as I'm shaking. But then it turned out not to be a problem at all. When before the game even starts, you get this message. Attention, please beware of spoilers. Game details, screenshots, event CGs, gameplay videos, and text may be uploaded to the internet up to Chapter 1 of the story. All of the above are forbidden from being uploaded online starting in Chapter 2. We ask for your cooperation so all players may enjoy the contents of this story. So imagine how smug I was seeing this message. Because frankly, I get it. Hey man, if your primary function is not actually to be a fun video game, but a story with pictures, then yeah, I would be giving up your entire value by showing a video playthrough. It would be like I can't stream a movie, right? I can't just sit down here and read through an entire book. That would be illegal. And so in your case, this message actually is just saying, please don't stream me, take mercy. I'm just a book with pictures. Bustafellows, it's okay. It's okay. I get it. And so my plan was not to play past chapter 1. Now, chapter 1, turns out, is 2.5 hours long. It's a whole damn movie. And in playing through chapter 1, I realized my preconceptions were correct. Horny? Yes, but particularly horny. A very specific kind of horny. Like, the fellows themselves all exhibit giant hands with long, slender fingers with huge gaps between. Like, it seems like finger gaps is a thing. And I didn't know this was a thing people like, but it's something I could believe people would be into. I wouldn't know. My hands are tiny. This guy took off his shirt before I expected anyone to. There's this scene.
一つ屋根の下って言っても、やましいこととか危険なことないって約束するし。
やましいことって何？
エロいこと？
エロいとか言うな、バカ！
I don't quite get all of it. It does seem very, like, just particularly horny. Specifically horny. Like, alright, imagine you're in high school, right? And there's a kid who sits down a few tables who's, like, a pretty normal guy. His name's Mike, right? But he's just always sitting alone. And so one day you're like, Mike, what's up? Do you want to come sit with us? And he's like, sure. Hi, everybody. Mike. Did you all see the nape of Mrs. Stuffel's neck today? And you're like, Mike! I love sitting in the front. Mike, stop it! It's almost at that level. And yes, despite all the horniness, Bustafellows is indeed boring. Boring indeedy. In the 2.5 hours I played of chapter 1, I made 4 decisions. 1, heads or tails. I chose incorrectly, and I was unable to afford coffee for me and Shu in limbo later. A half hour into the game, this kid asks me what kind of articles I want to write. This guy asked me what I thought of him. I chose handsome because I wanted, like, horny footage for this episode, but then he was like, so you see me as the opposite sex. This is what I'm talking about. This is like, why would you say that like that? The one interesting time where me as the player, I was actually asked an interesting question was when I was asked to recall something that had happened earlier in the game. First, Limbo is like, what's attached to my keychain? And I remembered. That was that leather shoehorn, apparently. I got that right. Second, he's like, my wallet has a membership card for a certain place I frequent. Which place am I referring to? And I did remember his wallet had 1,300 Elon Musk dollars. But like, I feel like there was something behind the money that I couldn't remember, and I was like, you got me, game. But then as I was editing this episode, here he says my wallet has my driver's license, my credit card, and $1,300 in Musk bucks. Where's your membership card? So you made me believe, game. You made me believe I forgot something. Congrats for that. But the truth is, there's no right answer. How would I possibly know? Obviously, I chose hot dog. So that's your 89, everybody. And so from the moment I told Helvetica he is handsome until the end of chapter 1, 1 hour and 15 minutes passed where I did nothing but watch the story unfold. And that should be what redeems the game, right? That should be why people love Bustafellows, is the story that just pops and skips and makes you intrigued. It's a hat on a hat situation where our main character, Teuta, she can go back in time, which is amazing, right? But here's the fun part. She can't choose how far back in time she goes, and she can't be in her own body. A body is randomly chosen for her to appear back in time in. And then when she eventually gets back to present day, she gets back into her own body. That's enough. That's a whole premise. Imagine a game that's just about that. However, because this is an otome, there are the Bustafellows. By the way, they're never, at least in chapter 1, they're never called the Bustafellows. That's just, I'm presuming they are the titular Bustafellows. I'm just assuming that. Anyway, they are these 5 handsome men who all have these unique jobs, and so they pool their resources to execute this degenerate vigilante justice. And they also all live together in one mansion. And that becomes the actual story. That is what the game is. The fact that our character, the main character, has this magical power is somehow the B plot. It's somehow not the most, like, you just let other things happen to you, and sometimes I'll use my magical power, absolutely, but that's not why we're here. We're here for the Bustafellows. And really though, okay, so this is a problem I have with a lot of video game stories altogether, is I think truly having a good story can be very simple. To me, a good story is very simply just down to its bare bones, interesting characters making interesting decisions. And in a lot of video games, you don't have either, you don't have both. And in this case, we don't. We, as the main character of this game, at least by the end of chapter 1, we don't do a single interesting thing. Really, the interesting choice is going to be which Bustafellow we want to let touch us with their giant hands. But really, that's fine with most video games. Most video games can just be cool characters saying cool shit and doing cool things, right? That can be it, because the video game itself propels everything forward and makes you more engaged in all of that. But in Bustafellows, it's heads or tails. It's try to remember which membership card I just made up suddenly. It's not, their fun is not there. And so when at the end of chapter 1, Bustafellows says,
"Stay tuned for next episode,"
I say never in a million years. That was your job, actually. That was the thing you were supposed to do throughout all of chapter 1, is make me excited for chapter 2. But I think it's okay to like this game. I think it's okay if you were a reviewer and you gave this game a 10 out of 10. I think that's okay too, because the truth is, on OpenCritic, Bustafellows has 11 reviews. Only one of them gave it the maximum score. Everyone else is like, this game's pretty good. The boys are cute. Like, that's fine. Bustafellows is not coming for your precious Metroid Dread. It's not. This is really just, it's really just the case of like, what if sweaty hunks from New Zealand dancing to raise money for old horses made it to the top of Rotten Tomatoes? That would be fun. I actually don't have a problem with this. What this video is about today, what I'm offering for you tonight, is the freedom to scoff. What I'm telling you is that you can freely ignore Bustafellows and not feel bad about it. Roll your eyes all you want. You were right. You looked at that game. You said, that's not for me, and that's probably not even that good of a visual novel. And you were correct. Bullseye, buddy. Now look, people say not to judge a book by its cover exactly, because we tend to judge by appearances. And 90% of that first impression is based on looks. Unfortunately, Bustafellows, in this case, I was 100% correct in my assessment based off of your cover. And it is my duty to now assign you the score you deserve, which is 5 out of 100. That's delayed input for this week. I'll be back next Thursday. Hope to see you then. Thanks for watching. So one thing I had a fun time looking up when I was writing this episode is because of the warning Bustafellows gives you about nothing past chapter 1, which is obscene, right? It's excessive. I was thinking about Persona 5. Because Persona 5 had a weird thing when it launched. And so I looked up that message that Atlas gave everybody on the day of the game's release. If you decide to stream past 7.7, I highly recommend not doing this. You have been warned. You do so at the risk of being issued a content ID claim, or worse, a channel strike / account suspension. Which is like, you can't do that. You can though, right? Like, it is illegal to stream a movie. Video games have this sort of informal relationship with streamers and their content, where generally they're just like, okay, just stream it. Just stream it. Persona 5 was like, don't, nuh-uh. But, so they got a lot of flack for saying no past 7.7. And so later on, they gave out this message. Because we want to give players the most access to the game while respecting the original goal, we're now asking players to refrain from streaming or posting video past the end of the in-game date of 11/19. So that's like 4.5 extra months that you get. when the main story gears up for the final act. We also want to apologize to those of you who saw the previous guidelines post as threatening. Oh, so that's on us. You have been warned. That was on us for assuming that was threatening. Anyway, when Persona 5 Royal came out, the expansion, 3 years later, at that point, Atlas had, at least it seemingly, finally resigned to accepting that streamers are going to stream. Like, they have the weird thing where they can block you from streaming on your console past a certain point. And that's so strange to me because you're hurting the people who have the smallest viewership, right? If you're streaming straight from your console, you're not one of the big time, big baller streamers. You're just doing it for your friends or just to get your feet wet, to see what it's like to stream. And those are the people you're like, you don't have OBS? You're screwed, bud. You can't. So like, they did that still. But for the most part, they just kind of, at this point, they're just asking nicely, please don't ruin our game. But they know, we're going to ruin your game. And that got me thinking about this time I streamed this game called Dragon Audit, which at one point, kind of near the end of the game, straight up stops the narration of the game. The game developer is talking to you directly. The player says, hey, are you streaming this? And you're like, yeah. And it's like, please stop. Look, you're costing me money. Please stop now. And we ask to please end the recording stream of this game at this point. Why? This allows players a chance to experience some of the game for themselves, and be honest, I can't afford to make games if everyone just watches the game instead of buying it. Bro. Thank you for asking instead of making a demand, but also, just don't. Obviously, I streamed the game to the very end. And guess what? You don't kiss the dragon. Even after that, because the request was like so personal, I did feel bad. So I did buy this dumb Dragon Audit shirt to hopefully balance out all the money I cost that game developer. This is the dragon's mom who dies.